So welcome everyone. We're excited to have you join us today for our Vault and coolOrange automation webinar. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to use the questions section at the bottom of your screen controls. We're also recording the session today and we'll send you a copy. So joining me today are Eric Miller and Milt Kapsamalis. Eric is a technical solutions manager here at NexGen Solutions. He has a background in mechanical engineering with 20 years of experience working with design and data management tools. He's done over 100 PDM, PLM projects, and for a variety of our customers, including implementations, training, and upgrades. Milt is the head of North American operations for coolOrange. He previously worked for Autodesk on the AutoCAD development team. Since then, he has written CAD and PDM software, managed development teams, and sat on the World Wide Web Consortium. Before I pass things off to them, just a quick overview again of kind of who we are. So NexGen Solutions is an Autodesk Gold Partner, and we've focused on design and manufacturing products. You may also hear us refer to ourselves as NexGenCAM. That was kind of how we originally started out, focusing on the CAM side of manufacturing. And as our company grew and we grew with our customers, we've expanded now to be a comprehensive solution for all of your design and manufacturing needs. Just a kind of quick high level, just a couple bragging points about ourselves. So earlier this year, we were awarded a Platinum Award by Autodesk as their #1 service partner. We are also their #1 CAM partner for 6 of the last 7 years. And we are also a Gold Authorized Training Center. So we really try to focus not only on just selling you some software, but we want to help you implement that, to provide consulting, training, support, everything that you need to just get the most out of that solution. So with that, I will pass it off to Eric.
Hey, thanks, Joy, and welcome everybody. So just going to touch on the topics here a little bit. So yeah, again, my name's Eric, and my role at NexGen is primarily our team does design and data management, kind of partner with our customers to help them get their workflows a little more fine-tuned and get things just working more efficiently. So obviously implementing a PDM, PLM tool is a great way to do that. These are the topics that Milt will be going through today. Automation and guardrails for engineering workflows, manual versus automated BOM management. And then he's going to touch on the Vault to ERP bill of material integration a little bit. And then we'll try to leave some time at the end for questions and answers. So when we talk Vault to ERP, again, that's the primary focus of this webinar, obviously, but I just wanted to touch a little bit on some of the other data management applications that Autodesk provides. There's Vault Basic that kind of comes with if you do have a seat of Inventor or AutoCAD or the collection, that kind of just gets sent over for free pretty much. So it's a great way to get started in data management. That's primarily PDM, so just kind of your check-ins, check-outs. What we're going to talk about mostly today is Vault Professional. So that has an API backend. It's got a job processor. It's got a little PLM kind of built into the PDM side of it, and is a much more fully functional solution for your team. And it's really one of I think the better tools out there, especially if you're using Inventor, AutoCAD, any of the Autodesk products. There's add-ins that work great for professional, and Milt's going to kind of show you how you can take that even to the next level and integrate that then with pretty much whatever ERP you're using. There's so many of them out there. He's going to kind of cover a little bit of that too, but I did want to touch on some of the other tools that are out there for Autodesk. As far as the Vault side of it, there used to be a work group that kind of went away. Now there's 2023 was the last edition version, I guess, that is going to be available for work group. Now those customers are kind of getting transitioned over to Vault Pro, and those will be just the two going forward, Vault Basic and Vault Pro. However, there is another tool that goes with kind of hand in hand with Vault Pro is called Vault Office. And basically it's what it is. It's a I wouldn't say, stripped down version of Vault Office, but it integrates, and can still get access to the same data. It's just not meant for CAD designers. So Vault Pro is for those heavy, Inventor users that are in there all day long. Vault Office is a little bit more of a tool that you can use to still participate in ECOs and things like that, but also maybe even check in, check out PDFs or Microsoft Office documents, things like that. So it does go, a lot of our customers that use Pro, that Vault Office is a little bit lesser expensive, as far as the cost goes. So that's kind of a nice tool for some of those non-CAD users to be able to still participate and be involved in the whole engineering workflow. A couple other ones that are out there on the market now. Autodesk recently acquired a tool called Upchain, and that's a cloud-based PDM and PLM tool. So like I mentioned, Vault has a little bit of both. Upchain kind of takes it a little bit further and includes other parts of your organization, like quality, suppliers, things like that, that kind of extend a little bit beyond just the engineering realm. So that's it's cloud-based, it's set up for you already. There's no server installation, things like that. So there's some benefits there. If you're interested, give us a call or contact us. We'll help you through the decision on which PDM tool is right for you. A couple of the other ones out there on the design, the product design side, are the Fusion 360 Manage extension. So if you're using Fusion 360 and you want to just kind of get a better, better processes wrapped around your data, as it goes from start to finish, the extension is great for that, for releasing, kind of controlling, work in progress versus released and things like that. Then there's also a kind of a step even beyond that. Autodesk kind of flagship PLM tool is called Fusion 360 Manage Pro or Professional, but that kind of it's a cloud-based tool there as well, but really does kind of a little bit what we talked about with Upchain. It's kind of more of that PLM side where you're extending information beyond just the design team and getting all those other departments involved: quality, manufacturing, service, suppliers. There's all kinds of workflows already built in, but there's tons of customizations there that you can do too to help kind of fit your company's existing workflows and kind of match up. And you can kind of phase some of that stuff in too. But so I wanted to kind of mention a few of those. Obviously, if you get into the AEC side, there's BIM, there's all those other things too that Autodesk has. But as far as the product design side, those the ones that I mentioned are kind of the key ones that I would definitely consider. As far as the implementations that I've done, I would say Vault Pro is probably still the most popular, but some of these other ones are definitely not. You don't want to rule them out if it's worth at least getting something in there to kind of better organization of your data. Better standardization is always a good move in order to kind of build better workflows. So anyway, with that, I'm going to toss it over to Milt, and he's going to kind of run through that a little bit about coolOrange, and also then go through kind of this, the tools that they have. So again, coolOrange is somebody we partner with NexGen. NexGen and coolOrange, we work together on these types of projects, and Milt's just going to kind of run through what that Vault to BOM ERP management, Vault to ERP BOM integration might look like. So go ahead, Milt.
Yeah, easy for you to say, Eric. Hi, welcome everyone. So today we're, after a little bit of explaining who we are, I'm going to walk through how the landscape works when you want to do integration in general between your vaulted CAD environment and other sort of enterprise systems. The classic example that I'll use as our example today is ERP, but the same thing applies for quality management systems, procurement systems, even sales and CRM systems as well, though those workflows are a little less common than the really standard handoff between design engineering and the folks downstairs on the shop floor who actually make things. Quick background on coolOrange. We're a partner of Autodesk and NexGenCAM. We build specific tools and solutions on top of the Autodesk stack. Really, our solutions fall into three areas that heavily surround PDM and PLM. We have tools for what we call load, which is everything from getting your first vault set up when you've never had one before, through to complicated migrations from other, maybe you have an old dying smart team that you installed 10 years ago, and you can't even figure out how to upgrade the Oracle server it runs on now, and it's time to get onto something more modern. We have tools for those kinds of migration projects, harmonizations. If you've got 12 divisions in your company that you've acquired over time and you want to get them all on one Vault environment as opposed to 7, we have tools for doing all those kinds of things. And we would work with NexGen and your team to figure out how that would go. But our day job is really the next 2 areas. We have tooling for automating common processes that you do in your vaulted environment, and this can be everything from you release a design and it's time to make PDFs and DXF flat patterns and step files and put them in the right place or check them back in or send them to a shared drive or email them out to someone or whatever. All those things are generally reproducible processes, and we have a product that puts a scripting engine that uses PowerShell to do scripted actions on top of the Vault job processor, so that it can work right in the flow of your design workflow. So do things on release, do things on a calendar, do things immediately on check-in. So that's our sort of most commonly used thing. We think every Vault should have this because it just extends the capability and makes it easy for you to automate things that you really could do in your nice workflow environment. And then the topic of today's discussion is what we call connect or integration. And the key here is using the same APIs and interfaces that Vault and the CAD products that connect to Vault use. We can wire your vaulted CAD experience right into your ERP system. So things like part pulling and bill of materials transfer and synchronization, and all those sort of common operations that people tend to do by spreadsheet or having 2 windows open and cutting and pasting fields between 2 apps, Vault and their ERP system, can be automated and made precise and reproducible. I don't know about you, but I'm terrible at those kinds of manual tasks, and my chances of getting a complicated BOM transferred by hand without making any mistakes, if there's more than like 20 lines in it, is slim to none. So we try to make those things automatic so that you don't make mistakes and you don't forget to do it, and you don't spend what little energy you have when you're done with your real job of designing something, cutting and pasting between 2 apps in a tedious exercise on a Friday afternoon. So with that, I'm going to ask Joy to throw up just a real quick poll. We just want to get a sense for how people do this now, right? So if you we just want to know, when it comes to creating, interacting with your bill of materials for your designs, are you doing what a lot of people are doing it in a spreadsheet, or using a spreadsheet to then make the exported BOM from Inventor, say, into a form that then can be consumed semi-manually with your other app, right? Whether that's ERP or whatever. This is a super common non-automated way of doing this. It's the sort of most obvious thing that you have available to you. So we're just curious if that's the way folks are doing it or not. So we'll give people a couple of seconds to reply here. I'm going to operate under the assumption that at least some of you are going to say yes, and then we can move on with talking about how we think this should be done. All right, Joe, you want to close that off, and then we'll go back to. Okay, so mix of responses, obviously, but we know this from years of working with folks on this, that between spreadsheets and opening 2 windows, one in your ERP system and one in your Vault, cutting and pasting between the 2 apps, is how most of this gets done these days. Some companies have some sort of external package that deals with bills of materials or whatever, but usually it's spreadsheets and cut and paste. So why is that a problem? Obviously, spreadsheets are offline things. They're not wired right into your workflow. People make mistakes when you export things and then manually manipulate them. Plus, it's just a pain in the neck, right? So, when these things get re-entered, I personally, I'm trained as an engineer originally, but that has never made me detail oriented enough to get these things right if I try to do them by hand, especially if you do fairly complex designs. We see routinely people pushing bills of materials that are, hundreds of lines long, even the part that just originates in your design. And the chances of on a design revision, syncing up that with the version of that bill of materials that's in your ERP system and not missing one line that had one field changed seems pretty unlikely to me. I know some people survive this exercise, but I would never be able to do it. And then doing things like trying to find parts that you've already pulled. If you're hunting around in spreadsheets, or you're hunting around in the item master or whatever they call it in your ERP system to find a part and decide whether that actually matches based on the right parameters, the thing that you just added to your raw materials or whatever, or your purchase parts. Also unbelievably difficult to do reliably. And then, obviously internally, if you've got a spreadsheet and you're trying to share around with, information out to other systems and all that, that's the kind of thing that's better done using, say, the procurement functionality in your ERP system. So it'd be better to make these things, wired into the particular area of functionality that, you have that's purpose built for that, rather than trying to email spreadsheets around or what have you. So anyway, so what do we think you can do? Obviously, it starts with having your engineering data, particularly your CAD designs, and the structured bill of materials that comes from that, in an organized environment like a Vault Pro, right? Now, and one of the most common things we get asked is, can this work only if you use, for those of you who are familiar with it, the item master in Vault? Now, Eric sort of referred to the PLM-like functionality in Vault. What that really refers to is the item master and sort of change orders. It is perfectly possible and completely common to do the workflows I'm about to describe, integrated with your ERP system, whether you use the items or not. So we can do direct association of parts as files to the associated ERP item or part or whatever it's called on that side. Or if you abstract them into items, so you can use the item master in Vault to get that extra functionality around bills of materials and items, we can do the association between the item and your part in ERP. Either one is fine. And it's honestly, it's a coin flip. And I'll tell you a couple of things about the details of some of the workflow options that come up because of this, right? But the other thing that's nice is that if you have all your vaulted CAD data organized in something like Vault, then there's a place to hang those permanent associations. So I have a record in Vault for that part, whether I abstract it into an item or not. I can say this is the part that's associated with that part in the record in my ERP master data, whatever they call that. We can also then do things like deciding and automating who pulls a new part number. So about 50% of the time, you have a workflow where in your Vault and CAD environment, you create parts and you define the part number using some scheme of your own. And then you tell that number to your ERP system. Other ERP systems have opinions about part numbers. If you run SAP, for example, The material ID is a permanently assigned number that can never be, reassigned. So we take that in stride in the way we automate your workflows. So either way, we set it up and we have sort of standard workflows that make the workflow work nicely between the two systems. But maybe I could get workflow into that sentence one more time. Then also right in your Vault environment, you have the ability to use life cycles to manage how you organize your process of changing parts or assemblies and bills of materials, etc. Because of that, and because of the way the Vault architecture works, we now have an organized way to do the synchronization with the other system. So we know when to update a record or a whole bill of materials between the two systems. If your workflow says pull the number right when you check in a new part, right at the beginning, and then synchronize the BOM only on release, or maybe in the other system you want to have intermediate steps in your workflow. When it's at maybe you have a step in your workflow that's asking the procurement people, can I even buy these things, right? In which case you want to synchronize the bill of materials to the other system right then and mark it somehow that they have work to do. All those things can be coordinated, and they can be coordinated based on the organized workflow of your Vault. And then obviously the standard vaulted functionality, we can enforce version and revision control. We can make sure that things aren't getting, out of whack between different users and all that. You're not running, you don't have a spreadsheet keeping track of what files are in what product, and they're out on some shared drive and somebody has a copy on their C drive and whatever. Obviously you can't do an organized collaborative bill of materials update if people have different versions of the assembly on their C drive. So now, how does this work? Okay, this is a little bit of plumbing, but it's sort of worth explaining just so you'll see later how this looks to the vaulted CAD user. But behind the scenes, Vault has APIs for everything. The communication between clients and Vault, so whether it's a CAD app, or Eric mentioned the Vault Office, so you're using Excel and you're checking files in, etc. Everything is done via APIs. When a bunch of us worked at Autodesk a bunch of years ago, we actually participated in a project with SAP, Microsoft, and there were a couple of other partners, Adobe, us being Autodesk at the time, and Adobe, and a few others, to come up with a basic technology for connecting these kinds of systems together. What came out of that exercise was a technology called OData, which is a style of a REST API, for those of you who care about these things, that makes it easy to abstract interfaces to different kinds of systems that have records and record-based transactions around things that look sort of like ERP. Now for Vault, that turned out to be a perfect solution. So we built coolOrange. We actually spun out and built a product called PowerGate. And PowerGate is a OData style API for connecting Vault to anything else that can do this kind of operation. And what it essentially says is there's a standard way in the view of the vaulted user for you to create, read, update, and delete, sort of standard operations on the three kinds of things that Vault cares about. Items, or part numbers, or whatever you want to call it. So these are typically your parts or your drawings even. Bills of materials, so the built-up list of those for any given design. And then in a interesting way, documents themselves. More often than not, and you'll see this later too, we don't transfer CAD documents to ERP directly, sometimes, but usually not. But very commonly, we automate the production of other kinds of documents, DXF, PDFs, even TIFF images or something, whatever is necessary, that the user in the ERP system who's not a CAD user needs to consume, say, a drawing, right? So they're going to go off and they're going to make a procurement packet for a vendor, and they need drawings and spreadsheets and some documents, but they don't need CAD drawings. Okay, fine, we can put those over there in an automatic way. So that's what this is, our solution for doing this. And we've done this for all manner of these systems, right? We've been doing this for 10 years now, a little more than 10 years actually. And the interesting thing about that technology, the OData wrapper that PowerGate presents, is that it makes all of these systems look fairly similar, except in sort of like the names of some fields and things, as you'll see, to the vaulted CAD users. So we can build rich experiences for those folks that are sort of our people in the Vault environment, and they can work in the context that they're comfortable and perform operations that go through that gateway and manipulate the data in the other system that's not really their favorite place to work. No offense to my SAP colleagues, but like, no one loves working in the SAP client. It's just no fun. So what does this look like? When you have PowerGate connecting your vaulted CAD users to an ERP system, the easiest thing, actually, I think, to give people a flavor for it is just to see a picture of what it looks like, right? So if you can even see in this little thing here, we connect the CAD user when they're working in the Vault environment through the gateway via extensions to UI and extensions to menus, right? So that they essentially have a window into live data in the other application. This is very important. It's because the connector is a bi-directional gateway. The operations that we do on their behalf, sending a new item, requesting a new part number, synchronizing a bill of materials between the two systems, that's done live in real time via API, so that we can do things like present errors. So if you miss a field that you're supposed to fill in, or if that part's already been used and somehow you manage to get it into your BOM or something, we can present that, and I'll show what that looks like in a minute. But the nice thing about it is that you can, and this is all customizable using simple standard Vault extension capabilities, you essentially get extensions to your user experience for the vaulted CAD user that gives them a window into that other app. So if you look at the little picture, and you've got like this tab, so we're looking at an assembly here, right? And this tab says ERP BOM, and what this really is here is a view of the ERP system's idea of this bill of materials. Now, there's associations. We've associated the number, and some of these types and things are the same values in both systems. But some of these other fields might be things that don't belong in Vault at all, right? So if you had a price or a vendor or whatever that you wanted to show the designer, but you wouldn't want to synchronize that data with your Vault because it doesn't belong there. It might change. It might change under the control of people in some other department you've never met. You don't want to have to worry about synchronizing that with your ERP, with your Vault data, but you may want to see it, or you may be required to put some input in here. And then some of these fields, which you'll see in a bit, can be edited on both sides. Some of them are read-only on this side because it's something that gets done over there, but you just want to see it here. All of that is easily under control of that gateway. So we can customize this UI, add slightly different fields. You want to see this part of the record. You require this field and this field before you can create a new one. All of that is very easy to do using the sort of scripting environment for the operations and the little UI extension capability toolkit that comes with Vault. So that's the flavor of what this looks like. You get to click a button that says BOM transfer, or and this is the other thing we were talking about before, you get to have BOM transfer initiated when you say release, for example. And we can go either way. You can do the sort of manual, tell me when you want to connect, or the wired into your workflow. I think I'm going to show a version a little bit later where it's the manual, just because it's easier to say, you know, here's what happens when you do this, as opposed to going through a whole release cycle and watching it happen automatically. But it's all the same behind the scenes. Eric mentioned, for now, we work with Vault work group. That's going away. Only professional will survive after 2023. Our experience is that most people are using Vault Professional anyway. So, you know, don't worry about that. One thing I didn't really mention, in these processes, we have the ability to watch over the shoulder of a user and throw in little bits of intelligence. And this is true in our integration products, PowerGate and Power PLM. It's also true in just normal, what we call our Power Jobs product, which is just the automation engine that will automate making things like PDFs and TXFs. We can also watch users, and as they're about to perform an operation, say check in a file or release an item or something like that, we can throw little scripts in there as if like Eric was living with you and watching over your shoulder, checking things like make sure that the value for the cross plant status is in the right range or selected from this list before you even send it over to the other system and have it error out or not notice, and then you have a problem later. So we have the ability to throw up what we call guardrails right in the process. And those can be added later if we find out that there's something that causes the BOM not to be structured right, that people do pretty often. We can throw in a little check that it'll just throw up a little dialog box that tells them, hey, you were supposed to set this to whatever. And that can refine your sort of data integrity and ensure its quality over time. And all of that fits nicely in this framework. So it's not an all or nothing thing. We can get this set up so it connects your systems, and then later you can come back and say, oh, we'd really like to check this value before we send it, or we really would like to enhance these fields with some other data that we can pull out of the file itself. All that can be done incrementally over time. So, hang on, give me a second here. I'm not updating. Yikes. Oh, there we go. All right. So the most common things that are interesting in this environment, BOM transfer, right? This is the tedious task when the time comes to take your multi-hundred line bill of materials and you want to make sure that you update it in sync with one that was already in place in your ERP system, or make it new for the first time. You know, it's not uncommon for these to be hundreds of lines long, right? And there may be 6, 7, 8, 9 fields that are required for this thing, and then a bunch of other optional ones. And cutting and pasting or manipulating spreadsheets and then uploading or whatever, really not the most fun job in the world, and the chances of it succeeding every time is pretty low. Turns out software is great at tedious tasks, so we can script these out. So we have basically the little utility that kicks in either automatically on, you know, a life cycle state change or manually, you know, with a button press. And, you know, it lays the stuff out nicely. You can see the synchronization. I'll show this in a second. You can see the coordination between the BOM on both sides. You can see that certain items weren't released yet and you need to update those first or what have you. This organizes all that for you. The other nice thing is that, excuse me, it's wired nicely into your CAD user's experience, right? So I mentioned pulling part numbers a minute ago, but also you can do searches for existing parts. So imagine you're assembling your design and you've got an opinionated system, an opinionated ERP system that wants to choose part numbers, right, based on some schema that's you know, managed by the ERP side. So right when you go to make a new part, you may want to first decide, geez, do I already have this, right? Especially if you're talking about purchase parts or raw materials, right? If you go to, when you go to do that, we can make right at the point in Inventor where you go to, or this applies to AutoCAD too, right when you go to pull a new part, rather than have the normal new part dialog, we intercept it and we give you a new part that's essentially connected through the gateway to your ERP system. and it'll guide you through selecting whatever input values you need. You know, maybe you need to choose what category it falls into. Maybe this is determined by your situation. What 4 or 5 bits of information do you have to tell the ERP system for it to then provide you a number, right? And maybe it's a number and a template, like a CAD template for that particular kind of part. And then that all ties into the category, say, that you choose for your part, and then the workflow that it gets sent through, right? All that can be done right at the beginning. And, you know, it's nice because you can even then do a little ERP-based search, right, to see if this part already exists, right? And the value of that, I don't think I have to tell anyone, right? It's much nicer to already have a part designed, and if it's, say, purchased, that the procurement's all set up for it already. You may even have some on the shelf, right? This is a beautiful environment to find that out right in the beginning. So a lot of your work is then done, right? Same thing for, you know, virtual components, raw materials, etc. Either way, whether sort of Inventor and Vault are in charge, or AutoCAD and Vault are in charge of things like part numbering, and then they just tell you their system, or we start the collaboration right here in the beginning, all of that is basically configuration option for this integration. So we figure out how you want your workflow to go, what your ERP system requires, and then we can guide you through that process so that you're not doing things like duplicating parts and you know, missing something that you already have in stock. So let me just show you a little bit of a flavor of how this works. I'm not going to do too much detail on this, but this should give you a flavor of how the experience is for a user who lives in a vaulted CAD environment when they interact with the system. This little demo, it's actually we're using an older version of Microsoft Navision, which is, you know, one of these generic ERP systems. It's actually a fairly common one in the Autodesk customer base, but we've done, you know, myriad of these systems. So so this example, just to set it up a little bit, is a case where they're using the item master, right? So as opposed to just going straight from the parts, and the workflow of the integration is button press based manual, right? So I'm using this example because basically we can say, look, here's what happens when this happens, as opposed to if you do the workflow based one where you say synchronize the BOM on release, unless there's a problem, it'll just go do it, right? And so you just work in Vault and you see it's release, so there's not as much to show. So anyway, so essentially in this situation, we're gonna show how to first find a part, right? So we've got this wood panel, which is essentially a purchased thing. So we're gonna first check and see if that already exists in your ERP system. So we'll do a little search, and this search is pointing through the gateway to your ERP system. These are basically ERP records, and then we're saying, yeah, well, we already got this thing, so we don't need to make a new part, right? And so now we've made that association, and forevermore in this design, it knows that this item, this item in Vault is associated with that part number in ERP. We're good to go. Now, obviously, our design is going to have something that we did new, right? So in this case, it's got a whole bunch. So we're going to first take another part here, and we're going to make a new one. Now, in this case, we just pressed the button, and it said, okay, here's a new part, and called it over the other system, and made it. Now we want to say, let's look at the entire bill of materials. First, we check to make sure all the items in the bill of materials are now synced up with ERP, so they already exist or they're matched. Now we want to check the whole BOM, right? So we give you this little dialogue. It says, oh, look at that. So most of these parts are new in terms of new in this BOM, but we know all the items already exist. So now we say, okay, since we're happy with the results of that sync, we just say go ahead and synchronize it. Sends all the information over. Now this view where it says ERP BOM, this is the sort of reflection back of what we got there. We often give you a little button just to launch the other app in case you want to go over there and see things, right? So that little button added in there did that. So now if you look, we can see that there's a correspondence between the ERP system's idea of this part, right, and the vault idea of this part. And most of this information is sort of match up between the two systems, you know, the number, we're using it in both places, whatever. But there's, you know, there could be a whole slew of fields in the ERP system that we're not allowed to modify on the vault side, some of which we could modify on either side, and we can synchronize those, and others we don't even care about them in the ERP side. I mean, in the vault side, we may never see them. We don't want to know. I don't want to transfer it, right? So over in the view on the vault side, we're never going to show that there. We're not going to manipulate it. We're not going to make it so that you could edit it. We just don't care. Now, if you ever need it, you can go launch the other app and go over and see. So if you did get called in by procurement guys and they asked you, hey, you know, do you remember this other vendor or whatever? Fine, you can go into ERP then. But for your day in, day out job, it's better to stay nicely ensconced in your vault environment and see the right subset of the ERP data in the context of your vault environment. And that's the whole idea behind doing this. So the same applies if this, you know, these steps had been done in response to just using, say, a release process in Vault. So you go and you say, release this design, and then it would pull up the BOM sync dialog box and say, hey, you're ready to do this now. Or just do it automatically if it checked and everything's all good, right? And which is also possible. So we have options for the way we wire this into your workflows. So whether you search for parts or just always make them, or you have to ask the other system for a part number, all those are just options in how this wires up. But the basic idea is that we're making it so that you can live in your vaulted CAD environment, do almost all of the operations that coordinate the designs that you're building with your ERP system's view of those things, right there in that environment where you know where everything is. You're comfortable working there. You don't have to try to remember what that weird field name is over the other system, if you have to fill it in or not, right? That's the gist of this, right? Whoops, don't need to do it again. So why do this? Now, Eric mentioned also Fusion 360 Manage. We have a related version of this Connect technology that pre-wires, and this is provided by Autodesk too, if you ask them, pre-wires your Vault to Fusion 360 Manage in a very similar way. Technology is a little bit different because it's in the cloud under the covers, but it's still the same kind of process. So this gateway technology, PowerGate, can apply to ERP, other PLM systems, and then other systems like quality management systems or CRM or whatever. So we show ERP because it's the most common, but we've done the same kind of, you know, structured collaboration operations to sort of any kind of system that needs to be synchronized with aspects of your CAD bill of materials, your CAD designs, etc. So why? Obviously, this is faster than cut and paste, right? And it's in most of the cases, except for the sign off on this looks good, the actual task is fire and forget. You press the button and it goes and does it. PowerShell scripts and REST APIs don't make cut and paste mistakes. So you don't get the oh rats, you know, I forgot to restructure the string in that by adding leading zeros or whatever. Obviously, it's more efficient to do it this way. You know, I say efficiency. My most important one on this is the last thing here, which is just the tedium of doing these things. Like even people who are good at this and can be careful enough to, you know, transfer a 270 item bill of materials between their vaulted BOM and their ERP system, doing cut and paste or spreadsheet manipulation or whatever. I mean, even if you're careful enough and good enough at that you can accomplish it successfully, who wants to, right? I mean, wouldn't you rather get back to, check out your next design and get back to work on the next revision of something rather than spend time doing this? So that's really it. This point, I think, Joy, if anybody threw any questions in the chat, we can address those, or if there's anything, Eric, that you wanted me to talk about that I didn't.
Oh, that was great, Milt. I don't see any questions right now, but I mean, hopefully our customers watching this get as excited about it as I do. I know it sounds I feel like a nerd saying that, but it's just think of the efficiency that can be kind of built in when you do that. Like, obviously, if one of the questions I had for you, Milt, was, okay, let's say a customer's already got Vault working, they're comfortable with that, they already have their ERP, and they just want to connect the two. What's the kind of the duration, kind of your average implementation time to kind of go from start to finish, and then they're just hitting the button to connect the two?
Yeah, so it usually takes sort of a couple of weeks to get the systems connected. It's a little longer if it's one of these systems where the ERP system in particular, where it's one of these systems where every one of them is highly customized. So then we have to do a little bit of work on the thing that connects the gateway on what I think of as the right hand side. There's others that are more standard. More commonly the fields are the exact same thing and whatever. In which case, if it's one we've already seen, then we don't really have to do any of that. So in those cases, really a couple of weeks, and the couple of weeks is as much logistics of getting stuff installed, getting a test server up and running so we can try it out first. And,
there's probably some upfront meetings where you're trying to figure out, okay, what data do you really need over there, and that kind of stuff with the customer.
And what we usually do is that we set up a test environment with a sandbox of each of their systems. We put this thing in place, and then because these discussions are difficult for end users in the abstract, we'll set up sort of a standard workflow, right? Get a couple of questions about, do you use items? Do you not use items? Does your system, if we don't know already, does your system insist on, your ERP system insist on setting the part numbers, or do you do it in CAD? Do you have a number generator in Vault, say? Once we determine that, then we set up a sort of standard flow that mostly matches what everyone needs, right? And then we can show people and then have the details of, okay, well, I'd like to see these 3 other fields and et cetera, no longer in the abstract, right? We can do it, demo it. They can say, oh, I'd like a button press for this rather than have it tied into the life cycle. Okay, fine.
Sure.
So the initial thing, couple of weeks, then customizations, depending on the sophistication of their workflows and the complexity of their bills of materials, and if they have other processes they need to wire into on the ERP side, procurement things that kick back jobs, or sales. If it's an engineer to order company and they get a sales order that needs to kick off a change order in Vault, there's additional workflows and things that we can customize in, and those can take basically as long as they take. Sometimes it'll be, we set up the initial thing in, takes a certain amount of work over, say 4 weeks or so. We get the thing up and running, and then it's, okay, come back later and tell us what you've discovered now, and you'd like to make a couple of tweaks, or you'd like an extra guardrail or whatever, and that can happen incrementally over time, right? So, a lot of times these things spiral up in capability. Once you get this happening, then people realize, oh, you know what? Really, I'd like to do a little bit more careful part search right in the beginning, because we have a bunch of dead stock sitting on shelves in warehouses, in Singapore or somewhere, because it's not so obvious whether we already have that part or not, right? So that's an engineering and design process discussion that we can then facilitate using the collaboration software, right? But it's often one of these things that they haven't really even considered doing in any detail, because they didn't have the wherewithal before, so it wasn't wired into their process, right? But once they realized that, oh, since it can search, well, let's set up the right search, right? And so the capabilities of like data quality and redesigning parts that you already have and things like that can get better over time once you have this sort of scaffolding in place. So, and that's not uncommon at all.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think obviously as our as our customers grow their business, this is just something that it's almost a necessity eventually to save that time, just get more efficient and have that workflow just kind of go start to finish. So
Yeah.
no, appreciate it. Just want to say thank you to you, Milt. I think that was a great presentation. I know we've already got a couple of these, or a few of these kind of in the works. And I know we have probably a bunch of customers that are watching this or that are, eventually going to maybe see this. We'll record it like Joy said, and we'll send it out. We're going to have this available. But, so as far as getting a hold of us and, hey, let's talk about the solution. Let's partner together, work together to kind of implement something like this. Feel free to reach out to us. Our website is out there, NexGenCAM or nexgensolutions.com. Feel free to email me directly, ericm@nexgencam.com. And I guess as far as a phone number, my direct is 701-712-9297. Or again, there's a number to get a hold of our sales team, our customer success team out on our website. So yeah, with that, I guess, Joy, anything else you want to close with, or?
No, I don't think so. I think you guys covered so much information. People are still processing, and so we'll just give them back their day, and they can reach out to us when those questions come up.